This is the LEGO Creator Vintage Motorcycle, and Creator is a theme that I actually haven't covered on this channel yet. But today we're going to change that by turning this little vintage motorcycle into a theme that we all know and love, Star Wars. But before we dive into the build, let's find out why I bought this vintage motorcycle. I actually got two copies of this set, one for an alternate build and then one for my dad. And while my dad isn't the biggest LEGO fan, he is a huge motorcycle guy. He's going to have this little vintage motorcycle, but he already has that larger Harley-Davidson Fat Boy set. And then as well, he owns a Harley-Davidson that he calls Catherine, and then a Royal Enfield that he calls Priscilla. And after this set struck my dad's eye in the LEGO catalog, I decided to look at it for myself, and I wanted one as well. But I'm not really a big motorcycle guy, I'm more of a Star Wars flying ships and vehicles kind of guy. So today we're going to bring this creator set into the Star Wars theme with my brand new Rebel Guerrilla Warfare speeder bike. This was originally a very small, unarmed civilian speeder bike that the Rebellion got a hold of, and then they retrofitted it to serve in a combat role. We know the Rebellion wasn't exactly rolling in money, so whenever they got a hold of a vehicle, they had to make the most of it. And while this might not be the prettiest speeder bike, it certainly gets the job done. Starting up at the nose of the speeder bike, we have two of the biggest features of this build sticking right out front. On the right side of the vehicle, we have two light blasters, and then right down the middle, we have this little stabilizer fin with a light on the end. And interestingly enough, the Rebellion actually likes to use this light as sort of a blinding tool. When the Rebellion is driving these speeders in a civilian setting, they keep the light pointed down and turned off, but then when they're ready to ambush the Imperials, they quickly point it forward and turn it on to blind them. And then while the Imperials are blinded by these lights, they can use all these cannons on the right side to take them out. And speaking of the cannons, we already saw the two light cannons sticking right out front, but on top of that, we actually have one heavier cannon. And I like to imagine that this third barrel can load a variety of rounds, so it could just be a standard heavy blaster, or you could maybe load explosive rounds in there. But then just underneath that cannon, we have this nice teal armor plating on the side. And we've got the same armor plating on the left side of the vehicle, just with no cannons. And then on either side of this front stabilizer, I made use of these piping pieces as a little bit of armor plating and some structural integrity to give it a nice slope on the front here. And then just behind this main stabilizer fin and next to the blasters, we have the seat for the pilot of this speeder bike. And I know I asked this question a few videos ago, but I still have no idea if speeder bike drivers or pilots, so for the sake of this video, they're going to be a driver pilot. But in this seating area, we have some cheese slopes on either side to act as some armrests. And then up front attached to the stabilizer, I repurposed those gas can or those soda can lids as some controls. As the only printed parts in this set, I had to get a little creative with them, and I like to think that the soda can lids kind of look like joysticks that you could grab onto on the sides. It's a nice little area that comfortably fits one minifigure with plenty of space to spare, so I'm sure with some easy modification we might be able to get two in here, or using two copies of this set. But that's a different video for a different time. For now, we just have one copy of the set with our one pilot sitting up front. But then that's pretty much the entirety of the driver pilot's area. You have your controls up front, armrests on the side, and then I like to use these brown pieces to make up some sort of backrest. But then just behind the backrest, we get into the huge engines that this speeder bike has. Now this motorcycle alternate build wouldn't have been complete if I didn't find a way to repurpose these wheels, so I decided to slap them on the backside to make them into two big engines. And big engines like this aren't something that you typically see on speeder bikes because most of the time they're powered by repulsor lifts. But because this speeder bike is being used in guerrilla warfare, I wanted it to have a few more modes of transportation rather than just staying on the ground like most speeder bikes. I wanted it to have a little bit of VTOL capability. So despite this being classified as a speeder, it's similar to the T-47 in that it can go into atmosphere just a little bit. Obviously this can't go as high as the T-47 because there's not a closed-in cockpit, but it can still go a decent amount up in the air. But this big engine assembly on the backside uses as many Technic pieces as possible. I still have quite a bit of leftover Technic, but I couldn't work it into the build. But then just above the frame that holds in these two large engines on either side, we have one smaller secondary engine right down the middle. And this isn't really a secondary engine, it's more of an emergency thruster. So in the event that this speeder bike is in a chase, it can engage the emergency thruster and launch way ahead to gain some ground on its opponent and potentially get away. So on top of these two large engines giving you a little bit of VTOL capability, you also have an emergency thruster to get out of sticky situations. But then other than that, that pretty much covers this entire speeder bike alternate build. We've got the main weapons for the vehicle over here on the right side with a light going right down the middle, a single seat for one driver pilot to control and drive the speeder, and then two massive VTOL engines with an emergency thruster on the back. All of that from just one vintage motorcycle build. If you guys would like to get instructions for this alternate build, you can head on over to my Patreon page right now, or I'll have the video version of these instructions uploaded to my YouTube channel in a little under 2 weeks. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this alternate build along with it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and as well, if you have any suggestions for any other themes or any other alternate builds that you'd like me to do, let me know down below. And then a special thank you to all my patrons who help make these alternate builds and these instructions possible. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.